I never thought I'd live to see the day my own son would turn against me. Those words have echoed in my mind for months now, haunting me like the creak of old floorboards in this house. My name is Margaret Hawthorne, and if you're reading this, or listening rather, I want you to know that what follows isn't just a story. It's a journey through betrayal, love, and redemption. Before we dive deeper into the tangled web of secrets that nearly tore my family apart, let me invite you to stay with me until the very end. Subscribe, share, and hear me out, because trust me, by the final chapter you won't look at inheritance or family the same way again. Now back to where it all began. I sit here in the dim glow of a desk lamp, surrounded by the relics of another time. This room, this house, is more than just bricks and wood. It's Hawthorne Manor, a sprawling estate nestled in the rolling hills of New England. My late husband, William, poured his heart into this place. He always said it was meant to be a sanctuary for our family, a legacy passed down through generations. But as I stare at his portrait hanging above the fireplace, I can't help but wonder. Did he ever imagine it would become a battlefield? It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. Edward, my eldest, has always been ambitious, cutthroat even. As a corporate lawyer in Boston, he thrives on winning no matter the cost. At first, his occasional phone calls about the manor seemed innocent enough. "Mom," he'd say, his voice dripping with false concern, "you're getting older. Managing something like this must be exhausting. Have you thought about selling?" Selling? The very idea made my blood boil. Then came the visits. Each one grew tenser than the last. One summer afternoon he stood right there in the study, gesturing toward the cracked plaster on the ceiling. "This place is falling apart, Mom. You can't keep clinging to the past." His tone wasn't caring, it was calculating. That's when I realized he wasn't just asking questions. He was planting seeds. Seeds of doubt. But I didn't let him see my fear. Instead, I smiled sweetly and replied, "Your father built this house with his own hands, Edward. Until the day I die, I'll honor his wishes, and so will you." Little did I know those words would come back to haunt us both. A few months later, I received a letter from Edward's law firm. Not from him directly. Oh no, that would have been too straightforward. The letter requested financial records, deeds, and documentation related to the manor. My stomach churned as I read it over and over, searching for some hidden meaning. When I finally called Edward to ask why his firm was involved, he laughed it off. "Just routine legal work, Mom. Nothing to worry about." Nothing to worry about. I knew better. That night, unable to sleep, I crept downstairs to the study and retrieved the original will from its hiding place, a locked drawer in William's antique desk. As I reread the carefully worded document, a cold realization washed over me. If Edward somehow managed to challenge the will, or worse, claim it was invalid, he could take control of everything. And Claire, my sweet overlooked daughter, wouldn't stand a chance. Determined to protect the manor, I decided to dig deeper into our family's history. Up in the attic, amidst dusty trunks and forgotten heirlooms, I stumbled upon something shocking. A second will. Dated years before William's death, it named Edward as the sole beneficiary. My heart sank. Had William changed his mind about including Claire? As I examined the document closer, though, something felt off. The signature didn't quite match William's usual handwriting. It was close but not perfect. Someone had forged it. My hands trembled as I tucked the papers under my arm and hurried back to the study. Who could have done this? And why? For the first time in years, I felt truly afraid, not just for myself but for the future of this family. The next time Edward visited, I was ready. Armed with the forged will, I confronted him in the study. "What is this?" I demanded, slamming the document onto the desk. Edward barely glanced at it. "Oh, that. Dad mentioned changing his will a while back. Guess he decided I deserved more." "You liar." I snapped, my voice rising. "This isn't his handwriting. Someone forged it." He smirked, leaning back in his chair. "Careful, Mom. Accusing me of forgery is a dangerous game. You sure you want to play that card?" We stared each other down, the air thick with tension. Finally, he stood up and walked to the door, pausing only to throw one last barb over his shoulder. "Face it, Mom. You're outnumbered. Sell the manor or I'll make sure you regret it." That night, I cried myself to sleep, wondering how my own son could treat me this way. Desperate for support, I confided in Claire. To my relief, she believed me immediately. Together, we began gathering evidence to prove the forgery. Claire suggested reaching out to Mr. Harrison, a retired judge who had known William for decades. Though hesitant at first, Mr. Harrison agreed to help authenticate the documents. Meanwhile, Edward grew increasingly aggressive, threatening legal action if I didn't cooperate. The pressure mounted and I feared we were running out of time. So I clung to hope. After all, I still held the original will, and the truth. As the days passed, I began to notice subtle changes in the way people looked at me. Neighbors who once greeted me warmly now avoided eye contact. Even old friends hesitated before inviting me to their gatherings. Word had spread. Edward's whispers about my supposed incompetence were taking root. Claire tried to reassure me, but I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes too. One evening, as we sat together on the porch watching the sunset, she asked quietly, "Mom, are you sure we're doing the right thing? What if Edward's right? Maybe selling the manor is the best option." Her words stung more than I cared to admit. But instead of snapping back, I took a deep breath and said, "Claire, this isn't just about money or property. It's about honoring your father's legacy and protecting ours. We can't let fear make us forget who we are." She nodded, though I could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. That night, as I lay awake listening to the wind rustle through the trees, I realized something crucial. This fight wasn't just against Edward, it was against the doubt he'd planted in everyone else, including myself. One chilly October evening, I returned home from meeting with Mr. Harrison to find the study door slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat. I always kept it locked when I wasn't inside. Pushing the door open, I froze. The desk drawers were pulled out, papers scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. Someone had been searching for something. Panic gripped me as I scrambled to check the hidden compartment where I stored the original will. Thankfully, it was still there, untouched. Whoever had broken in hadn't found it. But how long would it stay safe? I called Claire immediately, and within minutes she arrived with groceries and a determined look on her face. "You can't stay here alone," she insisted. "Not until we figure out who's behind this." For the first time in years, I felt truly vulnerable. And yet, despite the fear gnawing at my insides, I refused to give up. Not while I still held the truth in my hands. Just when things seemed hopeless, Claire uncovered a critical clue, a receipt tucked away in one of Edward's old briefcases. It was dated weeks before the forged will appeared and listed the purchase of an expensive fountain pen, the exact model used to sign the fake document. "This is it," Claire whispered, holding up the receipt triumphantly. "We have proof." But our celebration was short-lived. When we showed the evidence to Mr. Harrison, his expression darkened. "This is strong," he admitted, "but it won't be enough unless we can connect it directly to Edward. Without that, it's circumstantial at best." Frustration bubbled inside me. How much more did I have to endure? How many secrets did this family hold? So I clung to hope. If anyone could help us expose the truth, it was Mr. Harrison. Word came quickly after that. Edward had filed a lawsuit to contest the validity of the original will. Overnight, our private family drama became public spectacle. Reporters camped outside the gates of Hawthorne Manor, snapping photos and shouting questions whenever I ventured outside. Friends stopped calling altogether and neighbors whispered behind closed doors. Through it all, Claire remained steadfast by my side. Together, we pored over documents, rehearsed testimonies, and prepared for the trial ahead. Yet even as we worked tirelessly, I couldn't shake the feeling that Edward was always one step ahead. One evening, as we sat in the dimly lit study reviewing files, Claire turned to me and said softly, "Mom, no matter what happens, we'll get through this together. Right?" Her words brought tears to my eyes. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe them. The courtroom was cold, so cold that I could feel it seeping into my bones despite the heavy wool coat I wore. Claire sat beside me, her hand gripping mine tightly as if to anchor me to reality. Across the aisle, Edward looked every bit the polished lawyer he was. Sharp suit, confident posture, and an air of invincibility. As the judge entered and the proceedings began, I tried to steady my breathing. This wasn't just about property or money anymore. It was about truth versus lies, love versus greed. Our attorney opened with a simple statement. "This case isn't about who deserves what. It's about preserving the integrity of William Hawthorne's final wishes." Edward's team countered with a barrage of arguments, claiming the original will was outdated and impractical. They even brought forward witnesses. People who claimed William had expressed doubts about splitting the inheritance equally. Each word felt like a dagger aimed at the heart of everything I held dear. But I refused to crumble. Not here. Not now. Our moment came during the defense phase. Claire presented the receipt linking Edward's assistant to the purchase of the forged pen, along with expert testimony confirming the signature on the fake will was indeed fraudulent. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as our attorney drove the point home. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not merely a dispute over inheritance. It's a deliberate attempt to deceive and manipulate. But Edward wasn't done yet. In a calculated move, his lawyer called me to the stand. As I took my seat, I could feel all eyes on me, some curious, others skeptical. Edward stared at me from across the room, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Hawthorne," his lawyer began, his tone dripping with false sympathy, "isn't it true that you've always favored your daughter over your son?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "That's not true," I replied firmly. "I love both my children equally. But I also believe in honoring my husband's wishes and protecting the truth." For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in Edward's eyes. Regret? Guilt? Or just anger? I couldn't tell. Just when it seemed we had the upper hand, Edward dropped a bombshell. He produced a letter allegedly written by William shortly before his death, stating that he no longer wished for the manor to be preserved and instead wanted it sold. My heart sank as I read the words aloud in court. Could William have changed his mind without telling me? But then I noticed something. The handwriting didn't match any of his previous letters. It was too neat, too precise. Claire leaned over to whisper urgently, "Mom, that's not Dad's writing." Our attorney immediately requested a handwriting analysis. The tension in the room was palpable as the judge agreed to delay the verdict until the results were in. For the first time since the trial began, I allowed myself a small glimmer of hope. When the judge returned with the results, the courtroom fell silent. The handwriting expert confirmed what I already suspected. The letter was a forgery. Gasps rippled through the gallery as Edward's carefully constructed facade began to crack. His attorney scrambled to recover, but it was too late. The evidence was undeniable. The judge ruled in our favor, declaring the original will valid and dismissing Edward's claims entirely. As the gavel struck, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, but it was short-lived. Edward stormed out of the courtroom without so much as a glance in my direction. Watching him go, I couldn't help but wonder, had I lost my son forever? Back at Hawthorne Manor, Claire and I celebrated quietly. Though victorious, the trial had left scars. On our family, on our relationships, and on the town itself. People still whispered, unsure of whom to believe. But amidst the chaos, something beautiful emerged. Claire decided to move into the manor permanently, determined to restore it to its former glory. Together we began working on new projects, breathing life back into the estate. Yet despite the victory, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. One afternoon, while exploring the attic, Claire stumbled upon a hidden door behind a stack of old trunks. Inside was a small, dusty room filled with journals, photographs, and documents belonging to William. Among them was a journal entry dated weeks before his death. In it, William wrote about his fears regarding Edward's growing ambition and how it might one day threaten the family. He also mentioned someone close to him, a confidant who had helped draft the original will. The name sent chills down my spine. Mr. Harrison. Shaken, I confronted Mr. Harrison. At first he denied knowing anything about the hidden documents, but under pressure he confessed. He admitted that William had entrusted him not only with safeguarding the original will but also with ensuring that Edward never gained full control of the inheritance. "I did what I thought was best," Mr. Harrison said, his voice trembling. William feared Edward's greed would destroy the family. Though grateful for his role in exposing the forgery, I couldn't ignore the betrayal. Why hadn't he told me sooner? With the truth finally out, Claire and I worked to rebuild trust, not just with each other but within ourselves. We realized that holding on to grudges wouldn't honor William's memory. Forgiveness would. We reached out to Edward, inviting him to visit the manor. To our surprise, he agreed. Though distant and guarded, there were moments when I saw glimpses of the boy he used to be, the son who once loved this place as much as we did. Slowly, the rift between us began to heal. Edward didn't apologize outright, but his actions spoke louder than words. He started contributing financially to the manor's upkeep and even attended a few family gatherings. Hawthorne Manor became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the strength of family bonds tested by greed and betrayal. Life returned to a semblance of normalcy. Claire's art flourished, inspired by the stories she uncovered in the hidden room. I spent my days tending to the gardens, finding peace in the rhythms of nature. And though Edward remained somewhat estranged, I held on to hope that time would mend what was broken. Months had passed since the trial, and life at Hawthorne Manor had settled into a fragile rhythm. Claire and I spent our days restoring the estate, piece by piece, as if mending it could somehow heal the fractures in our family. But one rainy afternoon, while organizing William's papers in the study, I stumbled upon something that made my breath catch: a note tucked inside the original will. It was written in William's unmistakable handwriting, dated just days before his death. The words were simple yet profound. To my beloved family, remember that true wealth lies not in possessions but in love and unity. Protect each other always. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I clutched the note to my chest. All this time I'd been fighting for the manor, for its history, its legacy, but William's message reminded me of what truly mattered. His final wish wasn't about preserving bricks and mortar. It was about preserving us. On the anniversary of William's death, Claire and I hosted a small gathering at the manor. We invited close friends, neighbors, and even Edward, though I wasn't sure he'd show up. To my surprise, he arrived alone, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, a stark contrast to the polished lawyer I'd faced in court. As we stood together beneath the grand oak tree in the garden, Edward approached me hesitantly. "Mom," he began, his voice uncharacteristically soft, "I'm sorry. For everything." Before I could respond, he handed me an envelope. Inside was a deed transferring his share of the inheritance to Claire and me. "I don't deserve it," he said simply. "But maybe someday I'll earn your forgiveness." I stared at him, stunned. This wasn't the Edward I'd come to know over the past year, the calculating, ruthless man who'd stopped at nothing to claim the manor. This was someone different. Someone humbled. That night, after everyone had gone home, Edward stayed behind. He followed me to the study where I sat staring at the deed in disbelief. "Why are you doing this?" I asked finally, unable to keep the tremor from my voice. He sighed heavily, sinking into the chair across from me. "Because I realized I've been wrong all along. Dad didn't leave me this place because he thought I needed it. He left it to both of us because he wanted us to work together. And instead of honoring that, I let my pride and greed tear us apart." His honesty caught me off guard. For so long I'd seen Edward as the villain in this story, but now I saw something else. A son who had lost his way, and was trying to find his way back. In the weeks that followed, Edward became a regular presence at the manor. At first it was awkward. There were moments when old wounds threatened to reopen, but slowly trust began to rebuild. He worked alongside Claire and me, helping with repairs and learning the stories behind the antiques that filled the house. One evening, as we sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Edward turned to me and said, "You know, Mom, I think Dad would be proud of us right now." I smiled through tears, nodding. He would be. Because we're finally protecting what matters most. Hawthorne Manor still stands today, not as a monument to wealth or power, but as a testament to the enduring strength of family bonds tested by greed, betrayal, and ultimately redemption. As I watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting golden light across the fields, I know William would have been proud. And so, dear reader or listener, I leave you with this. True legacies aren't built on land or riches, but on the love and unity we nurture within our families. May we all remember that no matter how far we stray, there's always a path home.